This service and this address reaches out to people in some 65 countries across the world. So from time to time, of course, I want to welcome you into this important family of St. Michael's Church in Melbourne. Here today, I'm inviting you to pursue the question, why do we behave the way we do? What would encourage you to behave differently and better? And what part does the faith play? And in our case, the new faith. What part does our new faith play in our everyday life? In large areas of human behaviour, we know what motivates people to behave the way they do. They're angry. They're fearful. They act to protect themselves. They want revenge. Tit for tat. Yes, we know that. They are strong motivators. A person who feels they've been hurt, or feels they've been sidelined, or feels that they've lost their place, that people have been unfair to them, there's been an injustice or a discrimination, and it's gone on for long enough. That person may feel a surge of a very destructive motivation. The psychoanalyst Marilyn Charles wrote, "We increase our peril by accepting the invitation to wage war over there, rather than reflecting on the ways in which we are implicated in wars over here or in here. And the negative emotions and the negative attitudes impede, block reflective function." So I took Psalm 45. It said, we place ourselves in the service of a higher power. And Psalm 59, it said, we need to be part of an expansive conversation. Rather than be into an aggressive, defensive, constrictive conversation, belong to something bigger than yourself. We know that there are many demotivators. We have them, metaphorically at least, stacked around our shelves in our living room, at work, in our different relationships. Those demotivators, those flattening, those experiences and influences that flatten our motivation. Fatigue, disillusionment, disenchantment, other people's destructiveness, the loss of our sources of healing, the loss of those sources of encouragement and inspiration, the loss of many kinds. And being so overrun by our losses, we're no longer wanting to get a lift. Losses can be a block, and we don't see beyond them. The gospel reading said today, keep on knocking, keep on searching, keep on asking. It is the way to prepare for the future. If you're not knocking and searching and asking, you're probably coming to a standstill. Prepare for the future. What motivates you? Now, many of you know that there are many psychologies of motivation. How to perform at work better, how to be a better sportsman, sportswoman, how to get your relationships functioning when they're at a low ebb, how to lift your self-image when your self-image has been drained. Some of these psychologies, you know, are superficial, some ineffective, many full of promises. Most have a tag of a monetary rip-off attached to them. But some are very important and we need to listen to them. Today I'm going to speak about only one narrow field. I'd like to bring you the best psychology can offer when combined with a focused and relevant faith, applied to a critical zone of your life, one common experience of your life. You're sitting on your bed, on the side of your bed in the early morning, and the question comes to you, how can I get going when I don't want to get going? I feel so washed out, burnt out, worn out. There's this heavy sensation within. And your chemistry has gone into a kind of coagulation. There it's sitting. How do you get going? Or maybe it's like your brain has got its wiring all tangled up and it's not firing right. The brain has tangled its connections. It's lost its contact with the right interpreters, and so you're likely to interpret things wrongly or in a depressed and despondent way. Or sometimes it's not just about chemistry and the brain. It may be also because your mood has become like a heavy overcoat upon you. Sometimes it might be that you realize that the people of your past are still fiddling about with the switches, with your switches. And even though they're in the past, they're switching you in the present. Sometimes you look into your carry bag and you say, there are not too many eggs of satisfaction in here. There are no blossoms of joy in this bag. And instead of turning back to the stall to fill your bag with satisfactions and with joy, you walk on, demotivated, depauperated. So this man keeps asking, am I depressed? Maybe it's the wrong question, but he asks it. Or that teacher over there has switched off, and people around her say, she's bone lazy. And maybe it's the wrong diagnosis. Or this other person just doesn't like people and becomes hostile to the things that ought to bring enjoyment to life. And another person represses. They repress their motivators and give expression to their demotivators. As I've mentioned, the fatigue and the disenchantment and the discontent and the low self-worth and the sense of an unsettled inferiority. So what are we going to say about the motivators? No matter whether you are right up on the top perch, the highest perch of life, or whether you spend your day gathering up the husks on the floor, the one thing vital is how you feel about yourself. It is your greatest motivator. How you perceive yourself, how you feel about yourself. Do you feel you belong to something bigger than yourself? And that bigger belonging enlarges you, enhances you, makes you more enjoyable in yourself and with others? Or are you letting yourself decrease, diminish, retract? The self needs refocusing for good motivation. It needs re-energizing. It is that self part of you that needs attention. Secondly, I've been reading in a recent Time magazine, isn't it? Yes, Time magazine, about the monument in Washington, the Washington National Mall, a monument to the extraordinary life of Martin Luther King. And there it is. And there he is. 27 years after his assassination, a huge sculpture is now set in that mall. Sculpture of the man is set in the context of a mountain, the mountain of despair and the stone of hope. But above all, what made me go back and look again at this story was the 137-meter-long wall inscribed with quotations from Dr. King's speeches. And all around it are 182 cherry trees that will burst into bloom every April, the month of his assassination. And as they burst into bloom, they will be the symbol of hope and rebirth. And there are the words from one of his memorable speeches, the most memorable, I suppose, I Have a Dream, where he said, "With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope." So you might say, how does that help our motivation? Well, I think it ought to remind us, it could remind us of a larger worldview. And it speaks of inspiration in spite of everything that would crush it. Inspiration of the man, inspiration of the sculptor, inspiration of all who hear this story. We need this inspiration of this wider worldview. Or thirdly, again and again people fall by the wayside and they say, look, I'm just washed out, burned out. So easily they forget they need to be reconnected. Sometimes we say it, don't we? They need to recharge their batteries. Often they say we need our batteries recharged, but they don't know how to recharge them. They don't know where to go to reconnect. You need to be reconnected to the source, more than one source, the sources of good energy out there, or to that harmonious, balancing energy within ourselves, reconnected with the goodness that often lies repressed in our unconscious. Keep on knocking. Keep on asking. Keep on searching. Open the door. Those words are about preparing for the future. A forward faith connected with the energies of anticipation and generosity. Reconnected with the energy of genuine enjoyment. Reconnected with the best spirit of life, of good purpose, of good passion. Fourthly, we are likely to lose our best energy by letting it flow out in continuing hostility or in an extended grief or in endless disillusionment or unhealed hurt or that flat land of emptiness. I frequently say to people who come to see me, your experience is like an oil well that has sprung a leak and the oil is gushing forth in a massive flood over the ocean. And those who have the task of stopping that flow of the oil in the oil rig and cleaning up the mess need to do two things. They need to plug the gaping hole, number one. And they will spread a layer upon layer of white foam over the oil to break it down into a less toxic form. Now, the analogy holds, I believe, for our loss of huge amounts of energy on worry, anger, hostility, grief, and hurt and emptiness, because they flow out continuously. And we need to plug the hole, as it were, lest they gain control over us. We need to use a plug so that we can gain control over that flow of negative, demotivating energy. And then we need to spread the white foam of positive energy over the dark spread. I've been saying that for quite a long time, but just recently the New Scientist, relatively recently, the Scientific American, has been talking about the brain's dark energy. The brain's dark energy. And it's along the similar lines as to how the brain needs to deal with its dark energy. So here we have it. I want to see how we can spread our white foam of positive energy over that dark spread that we know so well. One of the quotations on the Martin Luther King Memorial says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." In the present day climate, we surely need more Martin Luther Kings. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Chris Hedges, in his book on the brutalities of war, I've mentioned it here before, he wrote, "Love may not always triumph, but it keeps us human. It offers us the only chance to escape from the contagion of war. And there are times when remaining human is the only victory possible." Oh yes, I wanted to read a little from Desmond Tutu's book. Bear with me while I do this, because it's relevant to this very issue. You remember that he was involved very much with the apartheid brutalities, and then he chaired the Commission on Truth and Reconciliation, bringing the different parties together to face each other for the brutalities on the one hand and the pain and suffering on the other. And at one point during the Commission hearings, he said this, "We have been shocked and filled with revulsion to hear of the depths to which we are able to sink in our inhumanity to one another, our capacity for sadistic enjoyment of the suffering we have inflicted on one another, the refinement of cruelty in keeping families guessing about the fate and whereabouts of their loved ones. That is one side, the ghastly and somber side of the picture that is emerging in this commission thus far. But there is another side," he said, "a more noble and inspiring one. We have been deeply touched and moved by the resilience of the human spirit. People who, by rights, should have had the stuffing knocked out of them, refusing to buckle under intense suffering and brutality and intimidation. People refusing to give up on the hope of freedom, knowing they were made of something better than the dehumanizing awfulness of injustice and oppression. Refusing to be intimidated to lower their sights. It is quite incredible the capacity people have shown to be magnanimous, refusing to be consumed by bitterness and hatred, willing to meet with those who have violated their persons and their rights, willing to meet in a spirit of forgiveness and reconciliation, eager only to know the truth, to know the perpetrator so that they could forgive them. We have been moved to tears. We have laughed. We have been silent. And we've stared the beast of our dark past in the eye. We have survived the ordeal, and we are realizing that we can indeed transcend the conflicts of the past and can hold hands as we realize our common and higher humanity. You know, we need faith for that, don't we? We need a new faith for that, and that is my fifth point to you today. A new faith is urgently needed No matter how you try to rewrap the old faith, it still acquiesces to brutality and violence, to dehumanization and disgusting inhumanity. That is why every year we hold our St. Michael's Day service to remind us that St. Michael's, from way back in that legend, stands for the overcoming of violence, destruction, hate, and waste. The new faith that we advocate keeps searching for what is beautiful in every human being, keeps on knocking on the door of the best spirit, keeps on asking for the experience that will elevate us, elevate our whole humanity. The knocking, the asking, the searching, the one pointing to the preparation for a better future. Even when the door is closed for the night, can we not expect and hope that something good and generous will bring a little light into that darkness? That even then, in that darkness, sometimes a miracle can occur. So, well, we might ask, how do we get going again when things have come to a standstill? When you feel as if you've been beaten by it all? When something ugly has occurred? And when you're fed up and fatigued? We need to take steps to restore our sense of who we are, our sense of self, self-worth, self-focus, self-well-being. We need to look again for those positive sources. Look into the baskets that you carry around for those sources of inspiration. And remember, motivation is the energy of being reconnected to good energy. And when the negative energy flows, as it often does, and you lose your best motivation, take action. Plug the gaping hole of your negative emotions. Plug that hole, and then cover the dark emotions with layer upon layer of that quite good emotion. And let that new faith be born, bringing you the energy of a better humanity, and keep assuring you, reminding you, and pointing you to be part of it. Would you please stand? Say with me, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And would you pause for the blessing? May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forward. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.